The Golden Rules of Freedom, number 4. Never immune, always resisting. You are never immune to our kind. You will always be susceptible to us because of your innate addiction to our kind. You cannot remove it, and thus you will not achieve immunity. You must therefore always be resisting. You can don the armour to protect yourself as fashioned through my works, but that armour will not give you permanent invulnerability. All armour must be updated, maintained, and checked, otherwise the shield splits, the chainmail links weaken, and the breastplate shatters more readily. If you think that you are immune to us, you are already succumbing to emotional thinking. It wants you to think that you are immune, because if that is what you think, then guess what you will do? You will either want to test your immunity, or you will believe that you can engage with us in some way, and therefore you are doing precisely what your emotional thinking wants you to do. It wants you to engage with us, and it will find what other way it can to make you do that. You are not immune. You may very well be able to take a telephone call from us and not react to what we have to say. You may even feel nothing for us, no pity, no love, no hate. That time. You may be able to take that second telephone call from us and feel the same way. But because you are not immune, the more you engage with us, whether this is thinking about us, talking about us, spending time with us, you will eventually fall prey to your emotional thinking to a greater extent. The very fact you are engaging with us when you think that you are immune means that your emotional thinking is working, because of course, logic and the first golden rule would tell you, once you know, you go, that you have no need to engage with us. Why then are you doing it? Because, you answer, I want to show myself I will not react, I will not get drawn back in. That is emotional thinking. You are engaging with us, and several things arise from this which are problematic for you. They may not appear problematic to you because during that telephone call you feel in control, you did not get upset, you do not feel anxious anymore. You do not feel anything for us, but you are creating problems. 1. You will be providing us with fuel. It may be minimal, but it will be there, because you will not be able to maintain a neutral and flat tone throughout a long conversation. Yes, you may be able to achieve this for a very short time, and yes, you may not be giving us much fuel, but it is there all the same. Thus, we are getting something that we want. 2. You are not rejecting us. By speaking to us, you have signalled that you will answer the phone and engage. You may not be enthusiastic, but you answered nevertheless. This provides us with encouragement. 3. You are feeding your addiction, and therefore your emotional thinking will want more, and in its insidious way, it will con you by telling you that you handled the call without any difficulty. It feels like this, of course, but it is not the case, and thus it will encourage you to do so again, or encourage you to attend that social event where you know we will be there, because you remain confident of being able to handle the situation. All you are doing is allowing the addiction to be fed, and for the emotional thinking to surge until it overwhelms you, and it will at a future point. 4. You may well be feeding us useful information in the course of the conversation, which we can use to our advantage. Accordingly, by thinking you are immune and therefore thinking you can engage safely with us, you are creating risks, you are creating problems. You have no need to engage with us. You have no need to test your immunity, because you are not immune. Understand this. Instead, you can build your resistance. You are resistant, but not immune. Some of you have a very low resistance, others far higher. But whichever it is, this resistance, just like the functioning of your own resistance to disease, can erode and weaken. The easiest way for this to happen is by repeatedly exposing yourself to engaging with us. The more you do so, you do not build your resistance, but then you weaken it. Of course, as I have explained earlier, you think you are becoming more resistant because you have had an encounter with us, and you walk away, head held high, thinking you handled it well. Superficially, yes, but beneath the surface the problems I have earlier explained are forming, waiting and growing, ready to ensnare you. By obeying this golden rule, you will avoid the complacency and risk which comes with thinking you are immune. Instead, you will recognize that you have resistance. You will understand that this resistance can be made stronger and can also be made weaker. So with that logic defense established in your mind, you will automatically start to work harder to avoid complacency and the problems that are associated with that. Some of your resistance will be innate, but the majority of your resistance is that which is learned and applied. You increase your resistance through reading and understanding, through the imposition of a solid no-contact regime, by applying a rigorous purging of the emotional infection, so it is driven to the lowest level, and by the building of logic defences. Combining all of those elements will heighten your resistance, minimise weakening it, reducing the risk of you using your resistance unnecessarily, which is of course a consequence of the impact of emotional thinking in itself, and means that when a Hoover happens to get through your defences unexpectedly, that when you have those bad days, when you pine for us, your resistance will not be found wanting, because you have not been using it up, and thus you are far more likely to be able to repel the Hoover. You will reject the emotional thinking which is straining to make you contact us, and you will ensure that your resistance remains intact. Do not voluntarily test it. That is giving in to emotional thinking and taking an unnecessary risk. Save its strength for when it is really needed, and because those moments will indeed come. By applying the cornerstone elements from what I have described earlier, maintenance becomes easier of them. It is more natural and more instinctive, and thus less arduous for you. You do not need to maintain a state of heightened vigilance. That becomes most draining. Instead, you will create a more readily maintained defensive regime. Doing so little and often becomes far easier than a sudden overhaul when it is too late, which is invariably when complacency has already become the traitor who is unlocking the castle gates. You are not immune. You are always resisting. Remember this, and that resistance will enable you to achieve freedom, and moreover, enable you to maintain it.